Welcome to Permission to Evolve. I'm your host, Brandon Thielk. I'm a performance and life coach. I'm joined by my co host and producer, Holly Deschenes. So, today we're going to be getting into the permission to not know. So, this is all about how to settle in uncertainty and why uncertainty is important. I think many of us are very action oriented and not liking sitting in the gap or limbo, but there's a lot of cool things that can be revealed in the uncertainty. And once again, we're trying to step out of patterns. That's a big part of what we do here is, we're trying to create some space to create some new actions, not just repeated actions over and over again. And so uncertainty is kind of a natural part of that. And that's really where the magic of life happens is when we step out of our patterns. As I open here, Holly, what comes to mind for you? What are some big uncertainties you're dealing with at the moment?
That's funny. That's funny. I think there's a lot of uncertainty, I would say, in the world currently, or politics. There's uncertainty there, decisions being made, all of that. So there's that element, which I think is more widespread. For me personally, I think there's uncertainty around some next steps. What direction am I heading in?
Mhm.
How do I make those moves? What's more important to me?
Yeah.
Versus security versus taking some big risks. Yeah.
We need a mixture. We need some things we count on, but then we also need to keep pushing for growth in certain areas. So that's the stuff that's meaningful and purposeful, where the risk is worth it for us. We don't want risk all over the board. That would be exhausting and fry our nerves. Yeah. So for me personally, like this summer has been a lot of uncertainty, a lot of clients falling through, a lot of having to piece things together. And yeah, as a small business owner, that's kind of the nature of it is you learn to get in sync with the cycles of things. And I, I think uncertainty, I view it as it generally happens a lot more when I'm like reworking things and trying to level up and I'm in this process of rebranding and putting some new things out there. I kind of expected it to be this way. And it's a lot more comfortable now than it used to be. I feel like I'm getting better at it. And it's just when, we're not able to get the results we want, or if things seem like they're working and then they fall off, that can plug us into a lot of fears. And I've learned to see those times as opportunities for growth, to face my fears, to go deeper into them and understand them better. Yeah, it's just every time when you do that work, you get stronger from it. And then you start to trust more. You start to operate more in faith and you kind of you see the beauty of the process. And that stays a normal job. You work and you get a paycheck and that kind of stuff. And that's pretty predictable. And these other forms, the risk taking and putting yourself out there and all that stuff, that's one of the best forms of self-development is running your own business, right? Because you have to face all these things. You have to grow. You have to work through them. It's not for the faint of heart. It's an interesting process. And so, yeah, I'm going to be sharing some things that I've learned from it. Also, once again, why it's important, why we need these periods, because there is just kind of a natural flow, a natural cycle to things. We can always look to nature for that. And there's the seasons. Summer seems more action oriented, winter seems more slow. There's just different phases you go through. And yeah, when you're kind of on your own functioning like I am, you're more in tune with that, right? Because that's more of the natural order of things. Every time you go through it just kind of strips you of a lot of the fears because you really have to work through things and you get stronger. And so I've learned to really appreciate that process. First off, where does this kind of need for certainty come from? Just like many things, we have all these structures that you follow. School is very good at kind of programming that. There's the deadlines, and this is how you progress from one grade to the next, and like all these things. So it's this predefined track. If you look at the corporate ladder, like that's the similar thing of, oh, I'm at this job, and if I do it really well, then maybe I can get the next job. We have these sequences where it's pretty clear what the target is, and that doesn't that's not much of a creative process. It's just, oh, this is the logical next step. I trust that if I keep working in that direction, it's going to happen. I think we need some of that. We need some of these things of it's very clear what my targets are, what I'm shooting for. But a lot of times we can get caught in this loop where we're always like kind of looking at the next rung on the ladder, and we think that's what we should want, but it might not feel good inside anymore. We might be on this track and then she's like, oh, is this for me? Is this how I want to live? Is this how I want to express myself and work and like all that stuff? I think a lot of people are kind of hitting that point right now with a lot of things. I'm seeing my client work. There's just kind of this push for more, push for different. And a lot of the stuff we talk about here is like how to not settle in life, right? Because if I always have this predictability, then basically I disengage from the other side of my brain, the creative side, the playful side, like all the things that don't necessarily have a goal attached to them, but they feed our soul. We see that much of society is like trying to create more and more certainty and more control over our lives. And so that conditioning, it once again, that's how we step into autopilot. It's obvious what I'm doing here. And it generally takes something coming in to really shake that up for us to start to think differently. And that could be layoffs or a health scare or something like that. It could be end of a relationship would be another one of, oh, I thought I was on this path and now that's no longer here. And so basically it's we can no longer project accurately into the future because things got mixed up on us, right? And so that creates a lot of uncertainty. And then that's when we get plugged into our fears. So there's a break in the action. And now it's just like, I don't know what my next step is. So that is going to bring all these things to the surface. So that's what we do with this work is we're trying to address those things because they were there all along. They were always in the background. They were always programmed into you. It's just the way you were existing and living. It was it was tucked away. You didn't really have to look at it. When we get to the bottom of a lot of this stuff is we are motivated by a lot of fears. We're motivated by wanting to be liked and not rejected, seeking approval from other people, finding our value and self-worth in other people or achievement. And all those things, they're generally built on a negative foundation. If we're talking about shifting into being conscious and aligning our lives, what's truest for us, it's those things are going to have to be addressed in that process. Once we hit the wall, like that's when we have to feel it. And the uncertainty, that's that window of like, okay, I know I can't move forward in the same way. And there is just this lull or regroup period. And that those can be some powerful redirections. Those can be getting more connected to yourself. That could be choosing to act out of purpose rather than fear. And other things, it can bury you or you can rise to the occasion and you can get stronger from it. Right. So these are all like kind of personal choices and like how you want to see it. And everything we talk about here, it is this matter of perception. It's how am I seeing the situation? Do I see one of these when I hit the wall, do I see that as okay, my life's over, I don't know what to do here, and I'm just gonna struggle forevermore and just try to go back to grabbing onto some sort of certainty again? Or do I use it as this opportunity to reflect, really take inventory of things and go deeper and really get back to who I am? Because when we're in these systems, it's like there is a lot of it's a mixed bag. There's some good qualities to it. There's stability, safety, security. But then there's also what am I giving up for that? And there's always an exchange. We're always giving something up. And there may be aspects where there's a lot of self-betrayal going on, where we're going along with things we don't agree with, where I'm just existing in exchange for that comfort. And so these are just once again, these are to get philosophical. What do you want out of life? The comfort will only take you so far. I think we're all meant for more. And I think learning to work with uncertainty and build through it, it just does so much for confidence, leadership skills, character development. Across the board, there's like benefits to being able to stay calm and centered in the midst of not knowing what's next. That's our goal is to really see some opportunities where we can welcome some uncertainty because that's what's going to engage this creative aspect that we have. So I'm not creating as long as I'm on that path. Okay. I'm basically like going through the motions, autopilot. Okay. I know what I'm doing, but when we wake up this other aspect, that gets suppressed a lot of times. That's the part that makes life exciting. That's what really engages us. That's where we can get connected to our heart and more in tune with ourselves and our emotions. I always recommend with anybody that even if you are on like a normal track, it's like to have some outlets for that, for some of the creativity and engaging with things on a different level. So because that helps balance us out, right? So we need those things that make life exciting in order to make these things more tolerable. I'm not and everything we talk about here, you do the soul searching. You figure out what's the right recipe for you. Many of us were raised in unstable households and unpredictability. And yeah, I'm not sure like what the reaction of a caregiver is going to be, or maybe there's scarcity around the household financially. And there's all that. So we really start to cling to the safety and security if that's a deep pain for us. And while I think that's completely valid and you should certainly work to build those things in your life, there's going to be a point where that's not going to feel the same. It's going to be like, okay, this is kind of boring. This isn't giving me enough. There's still something missing, right? And so that's really what this is. It's to explore that what's missing piece, and that's at the dosage that you feel is appropriate for your life. That's it. It's when we're going along with anything, there is just going to be aspects of ourselves that we shut down to exist in that type of environment. That's kind of the key here is we need outlets, we need things to be in tune with ourselves. And we do that through working through challenges, uncertainties, getting new experiences, doing things that maybe we're not good at or we're not trained for. It's kind of that idea of like being not good at something, starting new, that really starts to wake up. It refreshes the excitement for life. It really gets us engaged again on another level. And then we have some curiosities that flow from that.
Yeah, I would say said differently, it's that saying, be brave enough to suck at something new.
I think even like entrepreneurial people that figure business out and they're like, oh, now I just build a bunch of businesses because they're really good at it. It's still like, okay, yeah, this is getting easy. So usually they throw themselves into whether it's like going to climb Everest or something, or it's just like that's the thing is it's like it in all walks of life. I think that's necessary. This has been good, but I kind of need some of the uncertainty. I need something to bring these other aspects out of me because I've gotten too practiced in this way. So just keep rolling, or do you have something?
No, are you moving on to the next one?
Yeah, I was going to go to the cost.
Oh, okay. So if we think about this idea of uncertainty, people are uncomfortable with it for a variety of reasons: upbringing, life experience, comfortable in a job. They might try to force the answer
Mhm.
or come to a conclusion differently. So, talk a little bit about that kind of constant drive to force something, to look for the answers before you make moves.
Yeah, I mean, it's this inability to sit in the gap because the gap is uncomfortable. Like I said, because that's where our fears, anxieties, that's where we actually have to feel that stuff. And so, if I'm a very action oriented person, generally that's coming from the place of avoidance of those things, where it's just like, if I just keep moving forward, I don't have to feel that. So many of our minds are just consumed with day to day stuff. We're always kind of running from the fear subtly. I need to keep pushing forward because if I stop, then this thing's here in the background that's kind of haunting me. And so what happens is our nervous system kind of just gets stuck in this on mode. It's stuck in the fight or flight, which is heavy brain activity and not much relaxation in the body, right? So I'm always thinking about the to-do list, what needs to be done, the checklist, like all those things. That's a constant state of stress. If you're having sleep issues, that would kind of be that thing of having a tough time shutting your mind off. That's going to lead to burnout long term. We're also going to have overthinking. So if I'm not addressing my fears, if I'm not making peace with those things, I'm just going to accumulate things that I'm like on guard about, that I'm like looking out for because the fear is feeding it. So it's like I'm always looking for a problem to solve. I'm always looking for the answer. And we get the clarity in stillness. That's where we get our next steps actually, is we have to slow down and we have to get to the centered place to see what our actual next step is, not our reactionary behavior to whatever the stimulus is. It's this constant seeking for the next thing. And you see this constantly with high performers as well, where I hit this goal and now I just got to find them. That doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel the way I thought it would. And so I'm just going to reach for the next thing. Right. So you just keep trying to escalate whatever you're working on. It's just staying on that track continuously. We're not able to enjoy the process. We're not able to stay connected and actually kind of question our actions, being like, is this really what I want to do? Is this how I want to live my life? And so if we're action oriented, if that's where we default, the slowing down is going to be very uncomfortable. And we actually probably don't know ourselves very well in that place either. And so when we're sitting in that discomfort, we're going to be getting impulses to act. We're going to be getting nudges to just keep following the patterns. But the patterns are linked to the fear. It's this coping mechanism, like I need to just keep going. And so as we go into that stuff, we get to the bottom of it and we really start to understand ourselves better. It's that uncomfortable feeling that we're running from. And so that's why we rush things. I can't fully engage with the creative process because like I'm too worried about the deadline or trying to achieve something. So the creative process, I would say it escapes timelines. It's kind of like that kind of naturally happens in a flow, like when things are ready. And that's like at a different pace. We're not able to fully engage those things. And so we may just get things and just run with them before they're ready. We might try to force the process. We might try to push things forward and actually sabotage them. And when we're really attached to outcomes, that's going to be the case too, of like, I just I just need to get these things out there as quickly as possible. And it's a bit of the society we live in. It's all about speed and results and that kind of stuff. And the quality goes down of our work. The quality of our life goes down too. Because we're not taking that time to regroup. We're not getting centered with ourselves. We're not getting the clarity because I'm trying to rush to the answer. And when you get to the bottom of things, like the answers, it's going to feel peaceful. It's going to feel like, yeah, this excites me, or I feel really connected to this, or I feel like I have a deeper purpose here. That's where we kind of switch to being more methodical with things because you're like nurturing something. You're trying to take care of it. And that's a process that takes patience. And in that patience, like that's where the beautiful things are born. Is we're feeding something creative energy on a consistent basis, and then that starts to evolve over time. But once again, it's a conscious process. We're not in the reaction. We're not in the patterns. We're in this like I'm going to figure it out as I go mode, which is this constant like rediscovery of yourself. Like you, every step you take, you have to learn more about yourself. You have to learn more skills. Like you have to kind of develop these aspects of yourself that go underdeveloped as long as we're in the reaction. And this maturation process is working through those deeper negative emotions that have been driving you all along. So commonly with clients, especially a high performer, you generally start that way of I'm driven by pain and I'm just going to keep working at this thing to make it happen. And then you get the result, but then you're depleted, exhausted, and empty inside. Okay. And so that's where we switch the motivation to be like, okay, I'm no longer driven by the pain. I'm driven by this purpose. And that purpose is like something that's done with care, right? It's something, it's a slower pace and it's a more connected way of being, but that's also more fulfilling. That also that's what fills us up inside is when we really are expressing ourselves in a way that's meaningful to us, right? And so we're no longer chasing. I'm more allowing the process to develop. So these are important switches that I think everybody eventually has to get to if they want to find some sort of peace or fulfillment or long-term happiness. We need to take the pressure off things. We need to get back to play. We need to get back to that creative force. And also like when we're not sitting in the gap, and we just feel like we need to produce. Once again, with the rushing of steps, we also miss opportunities, right? Because my mind's dialed into the fear and trying to give me relief from it. That's pushing me towards actions that might be ruining other opportunities for me. Okay. So it's that slower pace where we get to see the whole field. Okay. So that's like the coach in the press box that's calling the plays. It's like, oh, these are the opportunities that I can see from this broader perspective. And that's what we're trying to do is we're trying to get to this broader perspective because now we can start to align the pieces and we can start to see the whole field and start to strategize from that place rather than just reacting to what's right in front of me. So yeah, we have the burnout, we have the rushing things along, which snaps us back into patterns. We also have missed opportunities because I'm not taking the time to see the whole field. I'm just following whatever I need to do to get relief from the fear I've been avoiding. Yeah, rushing the process is a big one where it's like we're not fully allowing ourselves to go there. We're not fully allowing ourselves to get connected and acting from an intentional place. And so we just start stringing things along. And then when they don't work out, we wonder why they didn't. It's because I didn't take care of the process. I didn't actually go as deep as I needed to level up in this new way or to disarm these patterns and still so I'm still functioning from them because that's what's known to me, that's what's safe, that's what I know how to do. And part of it is like being okay with doing nothing, being in this space where we're disengaged mentally from things. And that's where things can start to bubble up to the surface so that we can see the deeper levels. And this is definitely a challenge for a lot of people is the slowdown. And you and I have had many conversations about that where it's you're a highly productive person and that's a wonderful thing. But then it's like in that action orientation, there can just be some like pushing things forward before they're ready or just not really being able to settle into what do I really want this to be, right? Like, how do I really want this to go? And getting to that conscious level of of the intentionality of if I'm going to create something that's really meaningful to me at a deep level, that process isn't going to be rushed. We look for clues and then we start to kind of wrestle with ideas, but then it's also I need to learn to express myself differently through some sort of medium. It's allowing those things to unfold because every step we take is giving us feedback about where we still need to grow and the skills we need to develop. It's kind of this detaching from the finish line and just really getting into the process, learning to enjoy the journey because that's what's giving you these pretty cool, insightful answers every step of the way if we can stay in tune with that process.
Well, I think something you said there is important to clarify because there there are the opposites that exist in the world that will never move forward because of the uncertainty or because it's never quite perfect, it's never quite right, it's never so they could sit with it forever and never move it. So I think what you just said there is important from the standpoint of it might be slowing down and getting the right picture, but it's also taking the steps and looking at the feedback from every step to keep moving it forward. I
Oh,
don't want people to misunderstand that this is like a sit forever and never
yeah,
move,
yeah.
right?
It's yeah, everything's a balance, right? So what we're talking about here is polarities. So it's either act all the time or not act at all. So those are the polarities of it. And the solution's going to be in the middle or somewhere, or there's going to be different phases where this requires more action. This requires a little bit more reflection. But by and large, we're continually moving towards the center of as I get the feedback. Yeah, that's where I reflect and I go deeper with it. And then that's where I get my next step from. So it's kind of this back and forth where we want to catch that rhythm rather than just continually pushing forward or continually just being in this ongoing reflection or learning mode. Because let's say like anything you're learning, there is the application piece of I'm starting to intellectualize this. If I'm going to actually learn how to do it, I need experience. And so that's where I need to go put myself out there in new ways. That's how I'm going to learn to embody the things that I'm learning. So it is this back and forth that can really be a cool flow and rhythm. But a lot of times if we're stuck in inaction, that's gonna be a confidence issue. That's gonna be a self-worth issue. That's gonna be being afraid to be seen, which we covered last week, I believe. It's gonna be, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I don't know.
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
There's gonna be some reason my nervous system's completely shut off, or there's gonna be a reason that my nervous system's in high gear, right? So it's like regulation. I can oscillate between going into high gear if I need it, but we just don't want to be stuck in the switched on all the time. Just like we don't want to be stuck in the switched off all the time. And so, and that's saying, so if I'm acting all the time and not reflecting, I'm probably recreating the same problems over and over again. And so the question there is what am I avoiding or running from? Or what am I trying to prove? The other opposite end would be I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I'm going to have the imposter syndrome thing where no matter what I learn, I don't feel like it's ever going to be good enough for anybody. It's just these, if we're in a polarity, with that polarity, there's going to be certain problems that get created. And yeah, I would agree, like probably being more action oriented than less like just standing still is probably you're at least going to be getting some sort of feedback. Whether we're in tune with that feedback or not is a key, because that's what might cause sabotage. If I'm like acting too much and not having the reflection piece to really integrate the experiences. So both sides of it's going to present certain issues. But yeah, we're seeking for the balance, which is going to be this back and forth of like every experience, every action I take, I learn from that. Like not, I'm just going to continuously keep taking actions and just hope that things change, because if I'm running on patterns, I'm literally just going to be doing similar things over and over again. Yeah, I think that was a great point to clarify.
So I think there's a few things you said that stuck out to me besides the clarification there at the end. And you talked about the gap a lot. And I recently was listening to somebody who was talking about falling in love with the gap. You'll ultimately find what it is that you're looking for in the gap. So learn to love it. And so let's just talk about the practical ways to settle into things that feel uncertain, or how are the ways that you can find comfort, maybe is too strong of a word, but let's just say comfort, the uncertainty.
Yeah. So, what's the end, like with any of these, we talk a lot about discomfort and why it's important, but it's just because there are so many lessons in that. And so it's seeing it as like, it's a positive reframe of, okay, this doesn't feel very good, but I'm also associating with this idea that I'm growing into something more. I'm growing in a new direction. And so there's positive things coming out of the negative. That's the nature of everything. So even with the deepest pains we've experienced, there are positives that stem from that, even if they're hard to see. So we have to know that that's happening. We view that gap as like this, it is this like kind of incubation period. I don't have like a clear move here. I don't have a certain thing I can cling to. So what do I do in that space? It's not do nothing. You go deeper into yourself. Like you start to understand yourself better, because the clarity will come when you unblock yourself. Okay. So I might have some internal conflict going on. I might have some limiting beliefs that won't allow me to see the opportunities. I might have some things I'm trying to protect myself from, and so I won't allow myself to go there. But that gap is really, that's where we have that space to sort it out. When there's no clear action, that's our opportunity to be like, okay, well, like what is this stagnation about? And then we tend to have a negative judgment about that of like, oh, I'm not moving forward, so I must be moving backwards. But a lot of things are two steps forward, one step back. And the step back is where we regroup and we take a deeper look at things, being like, when I do act again, how can I do these things better? How can I have more clarity? How can I start to align the pieces so they work together a little bit better? Many times the biggest challenge for any of us is the timeline piece of like, we want things and we want them now. We go to nature and we're like, okay, well, yeah, you plant the seed and then you nurture it and eventually it grows. As many things are that way where it's like, I just had this idea. So that's the seed being planted. And so now I need to develop that, right? It's the timeline, it's tough because there's all these unforeseen things going on, like in the background, right? So as I start to dial into a desire and some actions I want to take, there are things lining up that I'm not aware of. And so timing is a huge thing. You can try and force something through, but if the timing's not right, it's not going to work out. That's where we want to get really in tune with intuition, because the intuition like tells us when to act. It's like, oh, okay, you get somebody might pop into your head, or you might get a hit to research something or whatever. It's this ongoing process of information starts to flow in when we're in the gap. On some level, I do have to detach from timeline. We're diligent in the gap. We're actively working on things. And working on things, yeah, might be working on yourself. It might be there's things that I have within me that might sabotage this if I get this opportunity too quickly. It's learning that the gap is there to serve you and that timing is important. And things do develop pretty naturally as long as we start to make peace with the gap, because it's an unfolding that happens in the slower paces where we get these insights, we get the clarity we need, that when the opportunity is ready, we're able to meet it. We're able to kind of glide into it rather than just kind of just taking all these shots in the dark. There is a time period for that. I think definitely people like fresh out of college should definitely be taking a lot of shots in the dark. So just being, I don't really know what I want, so I'm just going to try a bunch of stuff. That's also a mode. But as we're trying to build and create something consciously, we're going to have a sense of what that is. We need to develop that process. We need to go deeper into that and create that from a conscious place of like, how do I really want this to go? Last year, we worked on you starting the team, right? It's pulling your previous experiences and, yeah, how would I want to do this differently? What do I want to create here? And that's not something that happens overnight. Every step you take, you're okay, I ran into this problem. How can I align this differently to support me? So it's this ongoing working with the process where it might not just be where I can just click off a bunch of actions. It might be like, okay, I'm going to take a step and then that's giving me more information. And then that's what's providing the clarity for what the following steps will be. It's less about forcing answers and it's more about just allowing things to naturally flow from a process of, and we can only do that when we do detach from timelines. I think that's like difficult, like especially if you're like really operating under a lot of deadlines and many businesses, it's like it's a very forced process of, and that's why many businesses have tons of problems that surface, right? Because when you're pushing things forward constantly, you're not in tune with like, yeah, is this the right thing we should be doing here, or is there a better way we can do it? So many businesses are just kind of stringing things along rather than kind of taking the feedback and integrating it step by step and upgrading the process every step of the way. That's the thing, is we're engaging both sides of the brain here, which is what allows us to catch that rhythm. If we're too much in the action or too much in it, in action, we don't have that balancing act to act intelligently, which is going to be this conscious thought. It's going to be, okay, I can sit in the gap, and in that gap, it reveals answers to me. And when that clarity comes, like that's leveraged clarity. This is obvious what my next step is, and I'm going to be motivated and pushed to do it. Like, especially when I'm more in tune with purpose, you really just start to be pulled by things rather than having to push yourself. It's just kind of, oh, okay, yeah, this is the obvious next step, and I have no problem doing it because I've been doing this prep work. I've done the work in silence and in the background so that I don't have the hangups when I go to act. Really, the thing is, it's, we could call it the lab, right? It's you take things to retool them, rework on that, or in this reflection work, taking into account feedback, working through our limiting beliefs around whatever I'm trying to accomplish, and starting to disprove those things and align myself in a way that I can start to create some flow with things. Because if I'm in conflict with something I'm trying to do, it's kind of like I'm trying to push the gas and the brake at the same time. I'm not able to fully move forward because there's something within me that's trying to protect me or is not okay with this next step, right? And so that's where we start to see sabotage, or we might shame spiral. We might have a lot of negative thoughts come up when we go to do something. We might have a lot of anxiety around it. And so the anxiety is just kind of a clue to what's deeper. It's just information for us to work with, being like, okay, I need to address these things if I'm gonna hit this new level. That's a big part of the being seen thing. I think for a lot of people is I'm putting myself out there in a new way, and there's parts of me that's not okay with what that means to be fully seen. So we address that stuff first, and then when we go take the action, it's a lot more natural and it flows and it's easy. We're going to be in the place to hear the intuition of like what the right opportunity is for us. With this work, we're shedding the past and the negative emotions so that we can be more in tune with the present. And when you're connected in the present, you have a pretty good idea of what you need to be doing and what needs to be done next. And you're also, when the opportunities come up, you're able to really meet those and seize the opportunity because we cleaned out the hangups. The hangups are always from the past, and it's always going to be some identity I've attached to something, and I need to protect myself. So when we clean the slate, it just allows the flow to happen. And these actions are generally cleaner where they're not having negative impacts on other people around me or because if I'm just always pushing forward, I'm probably not aware of all the things that are happening. But if I slow down the process a little bit, it actually gets more efficient because I'm able to see more of the dynamics going on and I can maneuver the situations in a much more clean way.
Yeah, for sure. I think too, I'm guilty of this. I'm sure some of our listeners probably have similar thoughts too, in that when we relate things to nature or to seasons, it can make things feel long, or like the investment in reflection needs to be long, or the action, whatever, either way. And feel free to counter me on this if you see it differently, but I think I have found for me, it doesn't always have to be long. Sometimes it feels like it moves very quickly, or I might go through the both phases in one day or in a few hours of working on a project.
It's about alignment. So when I'm aligned and there's no conflict within me, things can happen faster, right? It doesn't have to be a slow pace. I'm a big, if you know the direction you're heading, I'm definitely take the time to get into alignment with it. And that just means, is there something in me that's blocked about this? Is there something in me that's conflicted about this? And that's what's cool about this work. So obviously, I spend massive amounts of time in reflection because I want to see the whole playing field with every person I'm working with. Just being able to hold this space, it takes a lot of that always regulating, always being connected, like all that stuff. It's a very conscious process. And so it's like in that place, it's kind of a beautiful thing because most of the people I work with are very action oriented, right? If we jump on the phone, like I can see things that you might not be able to see in the moment. That allows you to speed through the process as well. Oh, these are the blocks. These are the things that we need to shift here to create that alignment. And once the alignment's there, like things start to flow again. Being conscious and having the awareness of like if something's not working, there's a bigger picture that I'm not seeing here. One, it might not be ready. I might need to slow down, or there might be things within me that aren't ready. And so I need to work on those. And once that's there, now I can easily take that action. And we've talked about that many times where I'm like, I'm not like asking you to jump off a cliff every day. It's more of like, yeah, we're just going to keep working at it until this feels pretty naturally for you, right? You'll be able to glide into these next steps when the resistance is gone, because that resistance is what slows everything down. And so if we align the pieces, there's less resistance. That's where we start to flow.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the idea too, and why it's worth the investment in the work. The time, the money, the effort that you put into working through it. Worth it in the end to be able to go through those phases more quickly, and to have somebody who can objectively look at it from the outside and be like, "Yeah, but you're not seeing
Mhm. Yeah.
XYZ over here."
It is just an accelerator because it's just, and we're all guilty of that. We can only see so much ourselves. In some situations, we're too close to them where it might bring up a lot of emotions. And now I'm seeing everything through this negative lens. Those things take longer to sort out on your own than if you have guidance, right? And so guidance is just, oh, this is the path. It's because it's obvious to somebody that's not attached to it, right? Or that's been trained to see it. You can get the support on the other end. If you're a big action person, it would serve most people to get support and the reflection side, because that can, if they don't like doing that part, you can speed that part up.
Yeah.
And that just speeds up the learning process too, because you're able to take feedback and integrate it a lot faster with help than on your own. So
Okay, so outside of coaching, which we just talked about, like all the benefits of speeding this up through coaching and why it's worth it. But let's talk about the in between, right? You talk to somebody once a week, once every couple weeks. So
mhm,
so what are the steps somebody would do in between, or maybe they're not in a position to do coaching at this time. So
mhm.
what are your tips for them?
Yeah, so when you're in the gap or in this uncertainty, we do want to settle into it because it does have a lot of gifts if we're able to listen. And the first step, we're trying to strip judgment out of it. We're trying to get to this place of acceptance of, hey, like, I'm not sure what the answer is here. I don't know what the answer is yet. And that's okay. I know I'll figure it out. Right. It's allowing it a place to be without judging it or without trying to override it. Right. And so the first time is to set the first step is to settle into it. And so that's going to be the acceptance of like, this showed up for a reason. It's here to create some awareness for me. I want to do my best to extract those gifts from it. It's going to be first accepting things have slowed down or I don't know what my next step is. I just want to come to peace with it. Once I start to have that relaxation, I'm starting to open my mind up for the answers to surface. I ask the deeper questions. I might ask myself, what's my next step? And I might just kind of sit with that. And we're trying to create basically we're trying to step out of the action mode and we're trying to step into reflection. So that's that rest and digest side of the nervous system. So once again, meditation is always great for that. I know I plug it a lot, but so number two is we want to shift out of this control place of needing the answer into more of a curiosity. So what's possible for me here? What am I not seeing? What can I learn from this experience? We're prompting with curiosity rather than trying to control or manipulate external things to try and create a faster answer. Next would be we want to ground in the present moment. So our mind runs on loops from the past. It's a record of the past. So that's what it knows. And if we're going to step into something new, it's not going to really know what that is. And so we just want to get present in our body. And so that's taking some deep breaths, telling ourselves it's okay, that we're safe, and that the answer's out there. And we want to start to align with a solution. And so that just means I'm going to settle into this idea that every problem has a solution. And if I'm fixated on the problem, that's the energy I'm putting off, right? I'm in this place of stress of not having the answer. And so if I just kind of settle into not knowing and I want to know the answer and I'm ready to receive the answer, that starts to open us up to kind of see the problem differently in a way that gives us access to some new possibilities. Next would be to create some safety in not knowing. So that would mean like if it's not just kind of sitting and stirring over everything. It's do things that might improve your mood or make you feel better. So if you work out, you have some routines that like gets you into balance. We want to maintain all that stuff. We want to stay on track in terms of like, okay, this is what makes me feel good. This is what makes me feel like I'm aligned. From this like reading, listening to music, working out, being creative and playful, things like that. It's like also finding people you can engage with that might be able to you can bounce things off of them. You might be able to ask for advice depending on whether they know what you're talking about or not. So it's finding just different outlets to get the energy moving. And we're still sitting in uncertainty, but I'm at least like starting to get in this place of shaking things up. And so I'm going to continually recenter myself and then I'm going to start putting out feelers. I'm going to start putting myself out there in new ways to see if I can get some new answers rather than the same one that my mind keeps giving me. So and that might be researching, that might be reading books, that might be listening to podcasts. But I want to engage with new information because that might spark some ideas for me about a direction I can head. And the way we would engage with that is it would create some excitement. So when I have something that sparks in me, I just want to take some steps to reinforce that. I want to follow my excitement because that's probably leading me towards something new that's better. Last one would be journal prompts. So when we sit with ourselves and we're trying to work these things out, we can have some prompts to just really center and focus our energy and our intention. And so what am I afraid will happen if I don't know? Right. So if I was expected to have the answer all the time, like growing up or in school or whatever, it's just like I might have some fears there. I might feel like there's some serious consequences. And so I just need to ask myself, is that still valid? Because if I'm acting from that place, it's going to be blocking me. I'm going to be plugged back into fear response and then the patterns. What could this uncertainty be protecting me from right now? So this is a context-based thing of, given the situation, am I protecting myself from some sort of outcome? Like, what am I guarding against? If it's something that's completely valid, sometimes we are stopped in order to protect us, because if we continue forward, something bad might happen, right? So that's like our nervous system that's like in tune with so much more than we are. It's processing so much information, and it has all these awarenesses that we're not fully conscious of. A good one is always, let's say you're going somewhere and then something delays you, whether it's traffic or something, but things start to like happen to slow you down. And maybe it was to like keep you out of an accident or something bad happening. We get very structured and we get very attached to things. But there's also like there's a greater awareness that is just kind of more in tune with our feeling, that we might be protecting ourselves in some way that we're not fully aware of. That's this thing, is it's trusting the flow. It's trusting like, okay, I don't force things, because if I force things, there might be some consequences here that I'm not quite aware of. And so it's like, it's just, that's why we got to settle into uncertainty, settle into the unknown, is because we can't possibly know it all. Our mind can only handle a limited amount of stuff. And so our nervous system may be delaying things for a reason for us, right? It may be aligning us with timing. It may like there might be an opportunity that's not quite ready for us. And so we might have these shutdowns temporarily for a very specific reason. I just encourage anybody to sit in silence and listen and have some prompts that you want to pose to your subconscious and just kind of see what comes up. We're trying to take judgment out of everything, because the judgment, that's where we start manipulating. That's where we start forcing. That's where it's just, oh, this is bad, so I need to go in the opposite direction. But there's a bigger picture to everything going on, and we want to get in tune with that. And we only do that through slowing down here and there.
I think all of that's great advice for anybody looking to go deeper on this. Just in closing on this topic, maybe you can just say a little bit about what there is to gain in terms of growth from this. I know we've touched on it, but maybe just wrap that a little bit.
So everything I talk about here, I actually do live it. And being in uncertainty, it's something I've built a massive tolerance for, because of all of the gifts that it brings. A lot of the work I've done is really like deprogramming my mind. Okay. So when your mind's programmed, it has all these patterns, it has all these like habits, these ways of being. And so going through that process of dismantling things, it's basically this commitment to the brighter future. It's this commitment to more of like, I want new rather than old. And it's in that place, it's like when I'm going into something new, I'm forced to grow. I have to do differently. Like I have to adapt and change, and I have to upgrade my mindsets. I have to take new steps. I have to put myself in uncomfortable situations. But every time you do that, your mind expands, your world expands, you see things differently. And then you carry it with you everywhere, where you're just so much more trusting of the process. You start to adapt this faith of always trusting that things are going to work out in a better way than they previously did. The big part of uncertainty is it does bring new things if we allow it to, if we work with it. It also connects us deeper into ourselves, where we have to shed and let go of fears, shame, anxiety, stresses. We have to, because it's such an uncomfortable feeling, we learn to let those things go. And then that's what really restores the trust, is we stop trying to control. And that piggybacks on this idea of surrender. Time and time again, it's like every time I had a plan, it kind of felt like God's plan was different, right? It kind of felt like I was always redirected. I was always pushed into something else. And that made me highly adaptable. But it's like the surrendering of control is what always reveals to you these bigger picture, higher ideals. And anyway, it's this beautiful training ground too. So at this point in my life, I don't have a family, things like that. So it's just like I have the space to be this way. It does bring all these fresh perspectives. It does bring all these insights. It brings all these new learnings that I think regardless, it's something I'll always enjoy. And I would say at this point, I do kind of enjoy it because I know every time I have this delayed time or this phase where things slow down or there's massive uncertainty created, I know something bigger is coming at this point. I've really attached this idea of it's a positive experience that not only am I learning and growing, but the gifts on the other side as I level up. With all these things, it is about shedding the past and it's about getting more present and it's about surrendering to not knowing because I only know what my past has told me, right? What I've learned from that. And so if I want new things, it is about being in uncertainty and then trusting that you'll figure it out along the way. It's really a beautiful process when you start to allow for it. And it opens doors you can't really imagine. You start to, life pushes and pulls you in different directions that leads you to the unexpected. And that unexpected you just keep wanting more of it. Every day is a new adventure. It's not I'm living the same day over and over again. I encourage the listeners just whatever dose feels appropriate for your life, given your circumstances. We want to engage with this because we want that creativity, we want the play, we want to try and create this flow of expansion rather than because if we stay the other way, our life generally just keeps getting smaller and smaller. We keep shrinking it down. So there's big rewards attached to it and it makes life interesting and fun. So in that sense, it can be a roller coaster, but if you learn to ride the waves, that doesn't have to be a bad thing.
For sure. All of that's, yeah. I'm not representative of all of those comments yet, but more and more of them. So just thinking about if anybody wants to reach out to you, they're interested in your work, talk a little bit about how they can find you, obviously all the social platforms, but also what you've got coming up. Let's talk about that a little bit too.
If you'd like to go deeper, would like some coaching, you can go to my website, brandonthielk.com. That's THIELK. You can schedule a free discovery session. That's 30 minutes where I just get a feel for what you got going on and share how I can help. So if you're looking for extra support, that's a good option. Also, you can register for my newsletter on the website. So every Monday I send out the lightning report. And so that's just some insights and some teachings for the week and kind of a recap of what I've got going on. And so if you're interested there's some good value in that. And yeah, so we're going to be putting together a group event here. So we're eyeing October 24th through the 26th, and that will be up in Madison, Wisconsin. So that's an in-person experience. So we'll be putting a flyer out for that shortly. So be on the lookout for that. So that would be some live in-person group coaching as well as some teaching about some of the topics we talked about here, a little bit deeper into that and why that stuff's important. So yeah, if you want to follow along at Brandon Thielk on Instagram, that's where I post most often. There's all the socials. Holly will post those links. But yeah, please like, subscribe, comment, give some feedback. What are you looking to hear? I got my first comment of somebody suggesting something that they want to hear about. So that was cool.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Please do that more.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. Because it's just helpful to know what you guys want to hear about and try and tailor the content towards that. I can talk about this stuff all day. So if you have any prompts, by all means, share them. Thank you.
For sure. All right. Just like you said, we'll make sure everything's in the show notes or in the description on YouTube. Really appreciate all of you that are listening. We'll talk to you guys later.
All right. See ya.
Bye.